I wanted to show you guys a couple of other surplus guns that I bought in the early '90s. Again, if you're into Mosin Nagants, I got two of these right here. Now these aren't your common Mosins here. These two are what they call Model 28s, and they were made in Finland. So these are what they call Finnish Mosins. And there's a little history to go with how Finland got to adopt the Mosin Nagant as their particular battle rifle. What happened is it started in 1917 when the Tsar of Russia abdicated. This was before they murdered him, by the way. But he abdicated in 1917. During the whole Russian Revolution, and at the time, Finland was like a satellite country, a satellite possession of Russia. It was sort of they had a treaty with Russia, and they recognized the Russian Tsar as their leader. And what happened is when the Tsar was forced to abdicate, the Finns said, "This is our chance to declare independence." So they say, "Hey, we don't recognize this new government you guys have here in Russia. We recognize the Tsar, and since the Tsar isn't in control anymore, we got our independence." And what happened is they kicked out all of the Russians that were in Finland, and they kept all of the armories that the Russians had left in Finland. And the armories, of course, were filled with Russian Mosin Nagant rifles. So they adopted the Mosin Nagant as their battle rifle because they were a poor country and they didn't have the ability to build their own rifles. Well, over the years, these rifles, they started to wear out. And what they did is the Finns, they started to rebuild these original Russian rifles, and they rebuilt them the way they wanted them. Now this over here is the Model 28. This is a rifle that was specifically made for their Civil Guard or National Guard. They built, the Model 28 was built between 1928 and I believe 1932. And they built 33,000 of them. And I got two of them right here. For a rifle that is so rare, you'd wonder how much I paid for these back in 1992 when I bought them. And I'll tell you, I paid $39.50 a piece for them. That's $39.50 a piece. That's how much I paid for each of these rifles. Now, why were they so cheap back then? Well, I'm going to tell you, is that when the Finns started rebuilding the Russian rifles that they had, they put new barrels on them, and the barrels were chambered not for 7.62 by 54R, the Russian round, but they were chambered for a round they called the 7.62 by 53R. And the biggest difference between these two cartridges is that the Russian rifle, the bullet diameter was, I think it was either 310 or 311. It was I think it was 311. And the bullet diameter on these Finnish rifles was 308. Just like our 7.62 by 51 NATO round. It was 308. So you couldn't put a Russian 7.62 by 54R in this gun and shoot it because the bullet is a little bigger and it would cause a bit of an overpressure. And usually what would happen in these guns is that it would cause the the case to swell up enough, the extra pressure. It would cause the case to swell up enough so that it would jam and you wouldn't be able to get the case out. You'd have to tap it out. Well, around 1930, the Finns, they decided, well, you know what, we got to be able to use Russian ammo in our rifles too, along with our ammo, because we might capture a bunch of them, which they eventually did. So what they did is they actually reamed out the chamber in their rifles, and that would allow their rifles to shoot the Russian 311 bigger bullets in them without the overpressure problems. Now you could tell those particular rifles that had been reamed out, they would have a letter D stamped somewhere on the barrel or upper receiver here somewhere. These two rifles do not have that stamp. These were never updated. These particular rifles, I believe, were just squirreled away right around the time the war started, and these were probably never used in World War II. They were never updated. They had a version of this rifle called the 2830, which were updated. These are the original 28s right here. These were never updated. So to fire these guns safely, you have to hand load the ammo with these and use 308 bullets. And that is why these rifles were selling so cheap back in 1992. It's because you couldn't shoot the cheap Russian ammo in it. Okay, so if you go over this, you'll see, let me see here. I've told you that the Finns, they sort of built these rifles from Russian rifles. And what happened is almost all of them will have these old octagonal receivers on them. Can you get a closer look at this receiver? Sometime in the 20s, the Russians, they went from this type of receiver to a round receiver because they were easier to machine. These are old Imperial receivers in both of these guns, probably before 1918. And this was all left over from the arsenals that they had when they got their independence in 1917. And they just as the rifles wore out, they just put new barrels on them and they just rebuilt them. And if you look at the serial numbers and everything, you'll see that a lot of these serial numbers are all struck out, and there's different serial numbers on this gun, and it's like these rifles are like sort of like handmade, every last one of them. And this is one of the reasons why people love Finnish, Finn rifles, because Finn Mosins, because they were sort of like handmade, and they were made to a higher standard than the Russian Mosins. Let's see here. If you look here up on the top of this receiver on this gun, you will see it says SY. Can you see that SY, Miriam? The SY stands for the Civil Guard of Finland. That just shows that this rifle was made for the Civil Guard. Now, let's see here. Okay. You'll also notice by the serial number here, you'll notice here an SA. Can you get this SA down there? That is a property mark of the Finnish Army. So these particular rifles were taken over from the National Guard, and they were taken over by the Finnish Army during World War II, or maybe even after World War II. Okay, now let's see. If you look on this bolt, you see this number here. There's a little S in front of the serial number. This is what I understand is that this is the area and I guess it's the town of the county of the Civil National Guard that these rifles were assigned to. They have different counties, I guess, in Finland. Now, one of the things about this rifle is interesting is that if you look at this sight here, you'll notice on this side here, the markings on this here, these were the original sights that were on Russian Mosins, Imperial Mosins, and they were actually marked not in meters but in arshins, which is a Russian which is a Russian measurement of length. I can't remember exactly how much it is, but what happened is when the Finns got a hold of this, they actually restamped for meters. So on one side you've got arshins, on this side it's stamped for meters. And this is just some of the strange things that the Finns did with the rifles that they had. They took whatever they had from the Russians and they just updated them the way they wanted, the way they had to. This particular stock, you can see on this stock, it's been repaired. There's a big dent here that looks like they put some kind of a tar substance in it. There's a crack going across here that in the stock that looks like they put some kind of tar in it. And they, like I said, the Finns, they just did whatever they could on with these rifles. Oh, this thing's heavy. Now, these rifles were known for their accuracy. at the time because of the barrels. Let's see, this one here has got a Sacco barrel, I think, on it. This one here, if you look on here, you'll see SY, which is the marking for the Civil Guard, and you'll also see this triangle with a T in it. That means this is a Tikka gun and not a Sacco gun. And this barrel on this one is a Tikka barrel, which is a little more rare than the Sacco one over here. Okay. What else here? Okay. I'm looking for the... gosh, I can't find it offhand, but there's a marking on these guns that says KE, and that's the acceptance stamp from the person who inspected these rifles for the civil national, for their Civil Guard. I just wanted to show you these, and you put the right ammo on these things, and these are nail drivers. They're just great rifles when you get the right ammo for them. Unfortunately, it's hard to get the ammo for them. The last time I shot these was years ago, when I got a hold of the ammunition for them. That was it was Norma ammunition that was made, I think, was that Swedish ammo or something, but those would actually fire good in these things. And these rifles shoot really nice, but like I said, that's why they were so cheap at the time. But I guess there are some collectors who'd pay $500 a piece for these things, maybe, because they're somewhat rare. The most sought after Finnish model is actually the Model 39, which they started making in 1939. This is one of the earlier ones, or these two are the earlier ones. And I just wanted to show you guys some of the different variations of the Mosins. I already did a video on the Model 53s that I had. When I got these guns, I didn't know what they were. I just thought they were just a cheap rifle that I could just buy and go deer hunting or something with. And they just turned out to be like a collectible, I guess. But back when, I didn't know it at the time, but back in the early 90s, I lived through the last golden age of surplus firearms coming into the United States. And I'm going to tell you about that sometime, of what it was like and how dead the surplus market is now. And I'm talking dead. Compared to the 90s, it's dead. I hope you enjoyed watching this, and I wanted to thank my wife for videoing this for us. And please send some comments about my wife and give her a little attention on how well she's doing. Thank you very much.